All right, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I'm driving a 2016 Ford Focus RS. Up front is a 2.3 liter turbocharged inline 4 and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. If you want to read more of my thoughts, head on over to carmarshal.com/overdrive. I'll be writing a complete article about the Ford Focus RS. But this review is a very special review because not only is it my 150th review here on YouTube, but this car has a lot of sentimental value to me, and I'll get to that later on. So let's get back to that 2.3 liter inline 4. Well, I feel like it's a derivative of the older Speed 3s. Now, Ford and Mazda used to have a partnership in the 2000s. The partnership started in the 70s, but it really hit its stride in the 2000s. And the Speed 3s of that time, or most Speed 3s, had 2.3 liter turbocharged inline 4 cylinders. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that these engines probably share characteristics. Now, it is a 6-speed manual, and the coolest part, at least for me, about the RS is the fact that it's all-wheel drive. So we're here in the wet, drop it down into third, get into boost. It doesn't even care that it's wet outside. Very minimal torque steer. You get torque steer maybe in first, maybe second, but other than that, there's no issues there. I think that's one part of the all-wheel drive system really helps that out. And two, technology has just advanced so much. The old Speed 3s, they had horrible torque steer. And of course those were front-wheel drive, but still, there's almost no torque steer here, which is absolutely awesome. And I know I normally don't comment on it, but I have to comment on the Brembo brakes in the RS because they are insane. They're awesome from the factory. 4 piston calipers up front, 1 in the rear, but who cares? It'll stop on a dime. And the exhaust pops, but we'll get into all that exhaust stuff when we talk about the interior, because there is launch control and all of those goodies. So let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 2 analog gauges. On the left is my tachometer, and on the right is my speedometer. In the middle, I do get fuel and temperature, and then I get a screen. This is pretty typical of most Fords. You can get almost any information you want here. Right now I'm looking at my speed in actual digits, which I prefer, but I can cycle through mileage, miles per gallon, trip timer, distance till empty, bunch of different stuff. I'll show it here. On the steering wheel, there is a fair amount of buttons, but I think it looks pretty good because Ford kept all of the buttons the same color. I hate it when they try to mix all these different colors on the steering wheels. It looks like a melted box of crayons. But this actually looks pretty good. You have radio controls, your screen controls, cruise control, a bunch of different settings there. And the steering wheel is heated, which is a really nice feature. Now again, something I don't normally mention, but it's kind of weird on the RS, is the turn signal stalk actually has a button on the end of it for the suspension. So you have your drive modes, which again we'll talk about in a little bit, but you can actually adjust the suspension based off of the turn signal stalk, which is really, really weird. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but you can. Then to the left, you just have your light options, which actually really cool. The headlights, when you turn, the headlights actually turn on another light so you can kind of see through the corner. It's not moving headlights, but it kind of mimics that. Up on the dash, you do have 3 different little gauge pods. You have oil temperature, boost PSI, and oil PSI. Now, I'm not a big fan of the boost gauge in this car because it's a boost gauge, it works, but it's not a full boost gauge where it also shows vacuum. Actual boost gauges will show you the vacuum as well as the boost, so positive and negative pressure. But it's there. To me, that it just sort of feels gimmicky, but at least you get some sort of indication of your boost. Then you get a really nice center screen here. You get a bunch of different apps. It has Android Auto, and Apple CarPlay is actually coming soon. Bunch of different stuff here. You get your navigation. You can control phone, radio, everything. It's a pretty typical touchscreen. Although it is pretty responsive, it's not really laggy, which is something that you look for in a touchscreen radio. Then you have a giant radio knob and source and sound button. Then you have your climate control, which this does have heated seats. We'll talk about the seats here in a second, but it does have heated seats, which is really, really nice. Kind of enjoying that on a day like today. Then you have your shifter, which actually it feels really solid. Obviously, because this car only has about 10,000 miles on it, the bushings are still nearly perfect, but it's really notchy and it feels really good. Then you have a couple different buttons. Traction control off, so you can just turn that off on your own if you'd like. Then you have the auto start stop off button, which I will always leave turned on because I hate the auto start stop. I was genuinely shocked when I found out that the RS has auto start stop, but it does. You could turn it off. My biggest gripe with that, especially because this car is manual, it feels like you stalled the car and it makes you feel like you don't know how to drive your own car, and it bothers me. But below that, you have the fun button, which is the drive mode button. So actually, we'll circle back to that, but you do have the heated steering wheel button down there. Let's talk about the seats. Seats are very high bolstered. They will keep you in your place, which is super nice because this car is a car that not only you can daily, but you could take it to the track, you could have fun on a back road. I mean, that's really what this car is designed to do. But these seats are designed by Recaro. They are Recaro seats, like I mentioned earlier. They're heated. For a bigger guy, they're not the most comfortable, but if you were smaller than me, which most people are, you wouldn't really have an issue. Also, because this is the Focus chassis, this is a Focus, it is a 4-door, so we will do a back seat review. So we are now in the back of the RS. You don't really get many features back here. Seat back pockets have automatic windows. Ooh, one touch down. Are they one touch up? Yes, they are. That is really nice. 2 lights, bright and less bright. But honestly, it's not a bad back seat. This is how I was driving, and I have a decent amount of room for my knees. I can't tap dance back here, but why would I? I really like the blue stitching on the seats. I think that's a really nice touch. And I have headroom because it's a hatchback. That's the nicest thing about hatchbacks, for the rear passengers at least, is that I still have, you know, probably like an inch or two between me and the ceiling, and I'm 5'10", 5'11", something like that. So really overall pretty basic back seats, but really functional, and I think that helps out the RS for sure. The interior also has mood lighting. I cannot figure out how to change the mood lighting. I don't know if it does change. It's red, which I don't know why they did red when everything else RS is blue, but there is mood lighting, which is kind of neat. And of course it has a sunroof. How could I forget? You know I love a car with a sunroof. It just adds so much extra light. It makes every car look better with a sunroof. So let's get back to that drive mode button, the fun button really. So up on the dash here, right now I'm actually in sport mode because you gotta be. But there's normal mode, sport mode, track mode, and then, this is the only car I've ever reviewed with this, you have drift mode. So drift mode, this car was kind of known for having that because it was one of the first cars to do that. Basically, it sends a majority of the power to the rear wheels, turns the traction control off, and it allows you to do donuts, which no other Focus can properly do donuts. So that is really, really neat. But a couple other things with the sport and suspension is you get a louder exhaust. So there is a baffle that will open in the exhaust. You get a little bit louder of an exhaust. It's not going to pierce your ears if you put it into track mode, but it sounds a lot better. It sounds like a performance car and not an economy car. It also stiffens up the suspension. So the suspension has a magnetic ride suspension and it's adjustable. So you put it into track and you really feel the suspension stiffen up. It's going to be less comfortable of a ride, but you can essentially corner flatter, you can go faster, that sort of thing. But even, like I said, I'm in sport mode right now, and as you can probably tell, it's raining and it's not great weather. The car still does not slide. Now, if you put it into track mode, that will turn off traction control, so just be wary of that. Even though it is all-wheel drive, you're still going to be flying a little blind there. So, this car does have launch control, although it is a absolute pain in the neck to trigger. So I'm gonna see if I remember how to do it. So I'm gonna go back, settings, driver assist, launch control. Okay, so now after going through all those menus, I can hit launch control and it'll help you launch the vehicle, which I will show here. Now we have to talk about the outside because I think this is by far the best Ford Focus RS color there is. If you get a Ford Focus RS, get it in this color. No other car looks like this. It's the most identifiable color. It looks awesome. Now there is a gray that looks really good and the red looks all right, but I would not spend my money on any other color but this. Going off of that, it does have some subtle RS badges. I really like that. A lot of people kind of fought over the front grille when this car was released, saying that it looks weird. I think it looks great. I think it looks more aggressive and it doesn't look like a giant mouth like other Focuses. Now going off of that, there is the nice front RS badge, which I saw the other day a Ford Focus ST, the lower trim model, with a blue ST badge to look like the RS badge. Now, I am currently in a class called Lifespan Development, and we've been learning about embryos and zygotes and the formation of babies. And when the baby is finally born, it's this moment, the umbilical cord is cut and the baby cries to get its first breath of air. And actually, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the babies actually cry because Ford Focus ST owners put fake badges on their cars. That's why they cry. I don't know if you knew that, but that's why. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, this car has a lot of sediment to me. And no, I've actually never driven one before. This is my first experience driving one. I've never actually been in one until before last night. But the reason this car means so much to me is because when I decided 2-3 years ago, I decided, okay, I want to get into journalism. This is something I want to do. I want to become an automotive journalist. I want to be the next Chris Harris or Jeremy Clarkson or whatever it may be. And when this car came out was around that same exact time that I decided I wanted to get into journalism. And this was the hot car. Everyone was raving about this car. Every automotive journalist had their take on this car. And so this almost feels like a meet your heroes sort of experience. The best thing I could pair it to is when you're in junior high and your local high school goes to state and they win the state football championship, and then you wait a couple of years, obviously, and you grow up, and then you play on the football team at your high school and you go to state. It's that same feeling where you aspired to do something for so long, and then now I actually get to do it. I get to slip into the same shoes that some of the people I admire most have done. And I understand why they rave so much about the RS. It's really a perfect car. You have the trunk space, you have the 4 seats, it's manual, it's turbocharged, it's all-wheel drive, but you could still drift because of the drift mode. You could fit all your stuff in the back. And also, when you don't want to have fun, this thing is so ordinary. I mean, you can really shift through the gears like it's a base model Focus, like it's a 1-liter Fiesta. And it's not a 1-liter Fiesta, but it can be as civilized as you want it to be. Or it can be absolutely as rowdy as you want it to be. Oh, and those pops. Oh, those pops are so good. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to thank everyone who not only watches, but who has provided me with a car over the last 150 videos. This has been absolutely awesome, and I don't think I could find a more perfect car for the 150th review than the Focus RS. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys. There goes a sight from my soul.